All right, lads. Couch Pundits podcast here. We're just going to do a podcast today, just previewing some of the favourites for the Euros. So we've done the bookies' top six favourites for the Euros. So we're just going to go one by one, kind of analysing and breaking down their chances, like different things about them, that whether we think they're contenders or not, and how we think they're going to do. So. Daryl, I think we'll start off with the bookies' favourite. I think most people's favourite, you'd probably say France, the recent World Cup winners. Um, what's your opinion on them?
Yeah, with France, like they obviously have like an extremely strong 26, and had to leave a lot of big names out to form that 26. Like all the kind of the favorite running nations. Um, I think like one thing about France is that obviously the group they're in is extremely difficult. They're in the group of death with Portugal, Germany, and Hungary. And yeah, obviously like they're the bookies' favorites because of they've got to the Euro final in the last Euros. They won the last World Cup, and they have like a star-studded lineup that has only gone better, especially with the introduction of Karim Benzema, who's had I don't know how many years he's been out. I think 2015 was the last time he was called up
Yeah,
prior to this 2016
6 years.
or 26-man squad, not 2016. Um, so yeah, like especially their starting 11 is extremely strong. There's a few weak points that I have kind of pointed out in my head about them that I think with a team like France, you can't really say the reason why you think they're going to win, because the reason why you think they're going to win is kind of just because they're the best nation really at football at the moment. But why I think they might lose is down to a few positions, especially at the back four and in the midfield. So or the back five even, including the keeper. Hugo Lloris is a weird one because he has like this season in the Premier League, I think it's like the most goals prevented from any goalkeeper in the Premier League, if I'm not wrong. Pretty sure I'm right on that. And he's by like a mile because Spurs have been so bad this year. But like he just doesn't do it for me. Like when you're looking at a goalkeeper that you want like your confidence in and stuff like that. I think we've said it in the past, just not even on the podcast, just as mates talking about football. That he's just a keeper, just like Jordan Pickford, that's just liable to making a massive mistake and, just completely killing a game for himself, just like the way he did in the World Cup final. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he's just a big player that you kind of, even though he's the captain, just big. I don't know, not a big fan of him. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm kind of sick of people just like when like you say, oh, I don't really rate Lloris, and people go, oh, he's a World Cup winning captain. I'm like, yeah, like that's like 3 years ago. Like that just doesn't make him automatically like a good player. Like obviously he is good, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think his XG is unbelievable. Oh, sorry, not XG.
yeah,
His
whatever.
like
Goal prevention.
prevented XG. Yeah, I think it's really high. Like it's one of the best in the league. But yeah, I don't know. I just even when he is on unreal form, like there was a period like a year ago where he was unreal for months, but you still just don't trust him fully. Um, yeah, like I have a few points about France here. Obviously, you kind of covered a lot of the ground there. They're people's favorites because they've got the best starting 11. They've got unbelievable individuals in every position, and they've got a player who can come in almost any position and do just as good of a job. Bar maybe Kante and Mbappe. They're especially probably Kante. No, them two are the main ones. But yeah, as you said, kind of alluded to earlier with Benzema coming back. I think the fact that Deschamps has called him back to the squad after 6 years, even though he's won a World Cup without him, I think it just shows that he really needs. I feel like he really needs the qualities that Benzema offers, like the way Benzema can link the play between the other front players like Griezmann and Mbappe, whoever starts up there. I think it just shows. I don't think he has full faith in Giroud. Like I know Giroud's done well this year when he's played, and he was one of the top scorers in the Champions League, which is kind of hard to believe. Like he was Chelsea's top scorer in the Champions League, even though he didn't really play after the last 16. Um, it's interesting. Like and I think one thing about international football that does make me a bit worried about France is that no one really plays a high line. Like I know club football, like even like your average teams press, they have a high line, they're on the front foot with the defense, but like teams that do well in international tournaments the last few years are never on the front foot, really. They're always kind of very cautious, very defensive. So like you saw France in the last tournament in the World Cup, they won this. They won the World Cup playing four centre halves across the back four. Like they didn't even play out and out fullbacks really. Like Pavard and Hernandez are more natural centre halves than fullbacks. I still think they'll go with them. It'll probably be Varane, Kimpembe at the back. I reckon Kimpembe will be the centre back.
Yeah, that's what I think
Um,
as well.
yeah, I think yeah, it's an interesting one. I feel like people kind of think as well, like Kante does the job he does for Chelsea. He's actually a very different player for France. He really just screens the back four for France. Like he's a lot more limited in his role than he is when it comes to Chelsea. Chelsea, he is a box to box player, but he's very much a defensive midfielder for France, where he just kind of sits there, provides cover for the back two. But yeah, I do think as much as like France, they're not with the players they have. You'd honestly expect the most free flowing, fluid football ever, but they're actually like at times it can actually be a bit boring to watch. There's
Yeah.
obviously the odd moment where you get something unbelievable from Mbappe or Griezmann or Pogba, but they are actually a little bit boring and cautious. But that will probably do them better in tournaments. Like they'll be better for it after tournaments. They'll probably win more things. I just want to raise the thing of Pogba as well. Like I think Pogba is such an important player for France. I think he progresses the ball really well for them. Like from back to front. Like he's a player who can get the ball, and he's never gonna get knocked. Like he's never gonna get. He's really good at beating the press, but by just running with the ball, and like he's a great passer from deep as well. But I still just do worry with him. I think Kante's the only player I genuinely feel comfortable with Pogba beside him as a number six, because I just don't. I think Pogba just gives the ball away far too much. Like without trying to sound too much like Graham Souness, he does give the ball away a lot, and he slows the play down sometimes when he gets it. As much as he does, is great on it. But overall, I still, as much as I'm saying this, I still do back France to go very deep. Like I'd be shocked if they weren't in the final at least. Obviously when you get to a final, anything can happen. But even in any round, anything can happen. But I definitely just feel very confident in France this time, even more so than I did in the last World Cup. Just the fact that um I don't know, like I know a lot of people say like it's very hard to win a second international tournament in a row. So like, you know, the way Spain won three in a row, like it's very hard for like let's say Germany to win the 2014 World Cup and then do well in the 2016 Euros. But the fact that that was 3 years ago now, I feel like that it's kind of like not forgotten about, but it's not really playing as much a factor. It's kind of like it's a new tournament now. Even if you look at Portugal, I know they won the Euros, but like half of those players weren't even in the squad then. So, but yeah, no, overall, I think France. I'd probably pick France as my winners if I had to say anyone, just based on the squad being unbelievable and Deschamps is showing he can get a team over the line pretty much.
The one thing I worry about France, and I was talking to you a little bit earlier about it, is obviously I think Kante nailed down in this team in the midfield, and Pogba as well alongside him. But they do like to play a three in the midfield. So like in the one warm up game that they played against Wales, they played a 4-3-1-2 with Griezmann being the one that just stayed off Benzema and Mbappe. But now Kante, I'd imagine, was just resting for this game, or because he played in Champions League final. That because they played Pogba alongside Tolisso, who I'm a bit sus about, and Rabiot, who I just don't like, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I think a weird one was that he didn't bring one of those young players, whether it was like Camavinga or a likewise player. There's so many for France that are just talented young players. Like the way England brought Bellingham. Just a player that's just like that for France. Like when you look at the midfielders that they brought Sissoko, Thuram, who's young enough, then Tolisso, Rabiot, Coman, Kante, and Pogba. Like there's there, because obviously the few of the wingers there are counted as midfielders. There's no one really that I feel comfortable with as the third player in this midfield, whether it's they're playing as a double pivot, which they won't, or as a single pivot with Kante there and two midfielders just ahead of them, which they more than likely will, for that three in midfield. And like even I was talking to you about Tolisso, like he has 16 games played in the Bundesliga this year, 7 starts and an average of 49 minutes. With it was 1 goal, no assists, 1 yellow card, and 1 straight red. That was his stats for the year. Like, why are you bringing
How's
him?
he get into a squad like?
Yeah, into the best squad in Europe, and like he probably will start, but I don't rate him because I did like 2 years ago, but he hasn't done it. Like he was okay last season, but like didn't really play. Like he wasn't like this. He's not the standout midfielder for Bayern
Yeah.
Munich, and never has been. Like so, I don't know why they bring him. That's kind of one thing that I'm a little bit worried about for them. Because midfield's obviously probably one of the most important parts on the pitch, and I just can't see looking at their squad who comes in here, who steps into that midfield. Maybe Sissoko to give you legs, but
Yeah,
like
but you don't want someone like that like
no,
in an international tournament like that. Like I think, like as you were saying there, I think those five that you named there, Pogba, Kante, Benzema, Griezmann, and Mbappe will definitely start. I think the extra man, whether it's in a 4-2-3-1 or like I said, like a three sitters, Griezmann, then Mbappe, and Benzema up top. I feel like the extra man's going to be someone cautious anyway, even if it is a 4-2-3-1. If it's a if you're to assume it's Griezmann in the middle, Mbappe on the right, Benzema up front. I think the player on the left, whether it's like a kind of a left wing role or like a left centre mid when they took back in, like what Matuidi did, I think they'll want someone like that in the World Cup. Someone who's very cautious, like even if it's like a Lamar or someone like that. Even maybe Pogba can play out there because he's played there the odd time for United, where he
yeah,
kind of drifts between the left and midfield. I feel like whoever that is, it's not going to be someone like it's not going to be like an Ousmane Dembele or like a
yeah,
Thuram out there who's like an out and out winger. It's definitely going to be someone cautious because Deschamps is very cautious. But to be fair, it's worked for him in the past.
yeah, yeah. Dead right. So the next team that we're gonna move on to here is Portugal, who is also a front runner. Obviously, they were the last team to win the Euros. Dramatic fashion against France in the final. Pretty sure that was in France. Yeah, it was in France as well. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think about Portugal's chances here?
Well, obviously Portugal are the reigning champions of the Euros. One thing I want to point out about Portugal is, which I didn't really realize until I'd researched for this, Portugal have an excellent Euros record in the last 20 or so years. The last five Euros, they've won the last one. 2012, they got to the semis. 2008, they got to the quarters. 2004, they're runners up, and then they got the semi again in 2000. So they've had a really good record over the last 20 years in the Euros. They obviously got Ronaldo up front, like speaks for itself. He's 6 goals off breaking the all-time goal record for an international player, which is 109. He's currently on 103 in 173 games, which is just an incredible record. He's got 29 and 33 this season for Juventus, so he's not, even though he's gone 36 this year, he's definitely not slowing down. One thing about Portugal is they have unbelievable depth in every position. So if you look at the midfield, like you've players like João Paulinho from Sporting, you've players like Danilo Pereira of PSG, William Carvalho. Obviously, then when you get to the attacking midfield positions, you've got Bruno Fernandes, Ruben Neves, Bernardo Silva. Out wide, you've got players like João Felix, Jota, Guedes. The list goes on and on. One player I want to talk about is who I think will definitely start this summer for Portugal, which is probably he hasn't been talked about at all. I feel like Andre Silva. He's the striker for Frankfurt. He signed for AC Milan a few years ago and kind of flopped there, but he's moved to Frankfurt now, and he has 28 goals in 32 games in the Bundesliga this season, which is a better record than Haaland. But you just feel like he's just like one of the players who's not talked about. He's not even old. He's 24. Um, it's kind of an interesting one that way. Like he's just doesn't have the kind of hype around him because he was, I don't know, maybe he failed at AC Milan a few years ago. But yeah, he's had an unbelievable this season this year, and I feel like he'll definitely start up front for Portugal, along whether it's alongside Ronaldo or how it's worked. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting one really. Like you've obviously got so much quality there. Like you've got such a blend of youth and experience. Like you've got kind of younger players like Nuno Mendes at left back. He's been unbelievable this season. He started nearly every game for Sporting as they won their first league in a long time. Then you've got obviously Ruben Diaz, voted Premier League Player of the Season. Like you don't need to say too much about him. You've players like Bruno Fernandes, Jota, Joe Felix. They weren't in the reckoning like 3 years ago for the World Cup in the last major tournament. And then you've obviously got players like Ronaldo who speaks for himself. Then players like Jean Moutinho, loads of players like Joe Cancelo's coming into the setup now in the last few years as well. So it's just been they have an unbelievable squad, like similar to France. You feel like they've a player to come in every position. Um, it's really like as I said, same again with France. Like it's kind of just Ruben Diaz and obviously like Ronaldo really that you'd feel like is irreplaceable in this team. Everyone else is like they've just got so much depth and they can rotate. And I feel like as much as it's only a small short tournament, injuries could play a big factor for some teams. Like we're all going into this saying, um, France are the favourites, let's say. But if Kante picks up an injury in the first game and he's ruled out, well, that changes everything. Whereas I feel like, um, teams with depth, it's such a big thing. But yeah, I think Portugal are heavy favourites. I know they're in that group of death alongside France and Germany also, but yeah, I feel like they're big favourites for this, and their record, they've kind of always had a good record in the Euros too.
Yeah, I really like Portugal. Like, okay, they don't really play exciting football. They don't score that many goals. But like for a tournament winning team, I think they're pretty much solid across the board, as you said. And they do have players like there's one player, obviously a bit of Liverpool boys coming in here, but I think a big player for Portugal in this one is going to be Diogo Jota, and I'm going to explain why. So I can't remember who they were playing in the last World Cup qualifying game. Okay, so sorry about that. Can't remember who they were playing, but I'm sure it wasn't anyone too fantastic. But it was 0-0, and Jota had pretty bad stats across the board. It was like no successful dribble, no even attempt at a successful dribble, very few passes, very few touches in the box. Nothing really didn't have a successful cross, you know. But I'm pretty sure he didn't even attempt any of these things, like was completely out of the game. It was all on Bernardo Silva's side and still managed to get 2 goals and win the game for them. Like, and
Yeah,
look, I obviously rate him quite a lot as a player, but he is that type of player and he showed it this season with Liverpool. Like I'm pretty sure he has the best minutes to goal ratio, or the second highest in the Premier League for someone who scored more than 5 goals. So
yeah.
he was injured for a lot of the season, so you can't expect a lot. But it was something mental. Like every 119 minutes, he scored a goal. Like, um, but a player like that just doesn't necessarily need too much, because I think with the way Portugal play, they don't really create that many chances. For so many creative players like Bruno Fernandes, I'm pretty sure has no goals, no assists, or something like that, or 1 goal, no assists. Um, in the calendar year for Portugal, or whatever it was. I saw some mad stat like that he really isn't the same player. Doesn't play the same role for United. And I think there's plenty of players being overlooked here. I think well, Renato Sanchez. Pretty sure he plays for Lille, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he won the French league this year. Completely overlooked. Was the young player of the year in the last Euros, and obviously had his flops and stuff like that at Bayern Munich and Swansea. Um, but like someone who can definitely bring something to the board in a Euros, especially when you're trying to break down a team. Because as you said, like a lot of teams are quite defensive in these international competitions, and I actually reckon quite a lot of countries are going to play a 3 back and a 5 back. Um,
Yeah,
when it
definitely.
comes down to the big games, especially against a team like Portugal and Ronaldo in the box. And sometimes it's players like that just that create something out of nothing. They have so many players like that in the squad that I think, although France have Griezmann, Mbappe, Pogba, I think Portugal's arsenal, both going forward and defensively, I'd nearly put them ahead. Again, the only problem I see in Portugal is maybe their midfield with Danilo Pereira. Is pretty sure he's like a nailed on player for Portugal. I think the Portugal manager really likes him, and I don't rate him really at all from what I've seen from him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, Fernando Santos, the manager there. He was the manager who won them the Euros. In the last tournament in 2016. But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying there. Like, it was surprising to see someone like Renato Sanchez left out for Lille. Well, speaking of Lille as well, you have Jose Font at the back, alongside Ruben Diaz. Like Jose Font has got some of the best numbers for tackles and interceptions in the whole of Europe. Obviously, as Lille went to that shock league title in France. But yeah, like I think it is an interesting one. Portugal. I definitely feel like they're very versatile. As you said, you can imagine them playing in a 5 at the back, a 3 at the back, or just a 4 at the back also. They're definitely one of the top sides. But yeah, I think they have every chance of winning the tournament again. And as I said, even just historically, Portugal have probably never had as good a squad as this, arguably, and they're genuinely big contenders for this tournament this summer.
Yeah. So we talked about it a little bit already, but the other team that are in the group of death, that like obviously there's Hungary, but we're not gonna. There's just not enough time to talk about them. No need to. Is Germany. You know, they're the other team that kind of have a chance of
Yeah.
going the distance in the competition and making it out of the group of death. Just a little disclaimer so there is I think 3 or 4 spots going up for third place. I can't remember now. It's after slipping out of my mind whether it's
4.
3 or 4. Is it 4? So the
Yeah.
4 spots going for third place. For like the best third places. From all the groups. So obviously there can be 3 teams that go through this, but I think there probably will be. But you know, we'll just take it with a pinch of salt that maybe one team won't go through, and that could possibly be Germany. But tell me about
Yeah.
Germany a little bit.
Yeah, that's one thing that's interesting about it as well, because we all assume that this group, because of the quality of the teams, one of the teams in this group will be one of those third place teams that qualifies. But they could, like, let's say if it's Germany, like if they lose to Portugal and France, and they don't, let's say they drop points to Hungary, like they probably won't be. I think whoever comes third in this has to beat Hungary, I think. But
Yeah,
anyway, regardless of that, Germany have probably been in the worst period over the last probably 4 years now. That the national team has been in a long time. Obviously Yogi Love, the manager, I think I said that right. He's been there for 15 years now. He's got an unbelievable record. Obviously, took over after the 2006 World Cup. He's obviously won the World Cup in 2014. I think he's got to, I think it's 6 semi-finals. Like, outrageous it is. 6 semi-finals and 2 finals. One of them being the World Cup final, which he won. So, which is absolutely outrageous, like a record. Like, I know people are kind of giving him a lot of stick now, and Hansi Flick is coming in, but no, I still think he has to be commended for what he's done. But yeah, in terms of the squad, after the World Cup in 2018, Love decided to drop a lot of the players that were kind of in his team for the last 8 to 10 years in order to kind of bring through a new generation. But due to their good form, he's brought Hummels and Thomas Muller back into the squad, which kind of makes me think you wouldn't bring, especially for Hummels. There's a lot of debate about who will start at the back for Germany, because it's kind of all over the place, the squad at the moment. But
yeah,
um, I definitely don't think you'd bring back Hummels unless you're going to play him. Like, you're not going to bring him back into the squad to sit there. I definitely think he'll start. I think Rudiger will definitely start after the season he's had with Tuchel. Um, but yeah, like, I think people, I understand why people are saying it, but I still think people are kind of underrating Germany a little bit. Um, First of all, everyone's going to say, "Oh, they've Timo Werner up front, so they've no chance." He actually doesn't start for Germany. They play Serge
Joker.
Gnabry. Yeah, they played Serge Gnabry up front, who, like, I couldn't believe when I saw this. I had to read it about 5 times to make sure it was right. But he has 16 goals in 21 appearances for Germany, which is absolutely outrageous. It was 15 and 20, but about 20 minutes ago they just hammered Latvia 7-1, so I had to change it. But yeah, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable record that is. Obviously, then you have Gundogan in midfield, who's got 13 goals in the league for the season for Man City. Then you've got Werner has 16 in 39 for Germany, which is a good record. I know he's absolutely, like, trolled to bits online, but he has actually got a good record. Muller's called back in the squad, who's played over 100 games. Obviously, the thing people will say is their form over the last kind of, as I said, 3 to 4 years. They've had a really, since the World Cup, the Nations League starting, they've had a really poor Nations League. Obviously, that 6-0 hammering against Spain. Obviously, probably worse than that, they lost 2-1 to North Macedonia, which is
Yeah,
pretty bad. Like, that is pretty bad. One thing I'll say about them, though, is they do have home advantage in the 3 group games. Not sure about after that. It depends, obviously, how things work, whether they finish first, second, or third, what side of the draw they'll be on. They could be at home for some of the knockout games, but yeah, like, all the games are in Germany, which is a very big positive for them. Uh, I think I think Germany have a better squad than people realize. Like, you still have players like Kroos, Goretzka, Kimmich. Like, that's an unbelievable midfield. Just those 3 alone. Players like Sane, Werner, Gnabry, Havertz, who's actually always played very well for Germany. Um, and he's kind of coming into the form at the right time, with Chelsea in the last 2 to 3 months. But I think Germany have probably a better squad than people give them credit for. I think they are a bit dodgy at the back. I don't really rate the fullback options because Kimmich always plays in midfield. Um, I'm not sure. Like, there's a lot of talk about Sula playing at right back, and he's so clunky. Like, he's just not a right back at all.
Yeah.
Left backs, they called in Matthias Ginter to play left back, who's been at Freiburg for the last few years, hasn't got a look in the Germany squad for years, and they're kind of just calling him back now. It's just a bit of a dodgy position there. Obviously, you still have Hummels. You still have Neuer in goals, who's obviously a top keeper. But I don't know what to make of Germany. I've been saying to you, I think Germany could cause an upset. I think Portugal and France are better than them, but I feel like people do underrate Germany, and like someone like Gnabry up top, like they still have unbelievable quality. Um, I know their form has been poor, but I wouldn't completely write them off. Like you can't really write off Germany. Like the record they have in international tournaments over the last 20, 30 years is unbelievable. I know that's not indicative of this team because they have been poor, but I think people need to kind of give Germany a bit more respect because they do have players on form. Like I'm not just saying it because I'm a Chelsea fan. Well, I am a bit, but Rudiger's been on unbelievable form this season. So is Hummels. That three midfield, Kimmich, Kroos, and Goretzka. That's a top midfield. That is. Then you've got Gnabry up front, unbelievable record. Then players like Havertz, Sané, Werner. Like I don't think it's that as bad of a squad. Really, it's the fullbacks that really worry me. But I think besides that, I think it's a solid team.
Yeah, like arguably you'd actually probably prefer for your fullbacks to be weak than to have the same kind of problem that maybe France and Portugal have, where they have like kind of a lopsided midfield. Um, no, maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm just talking just rubbish here, but maybe a scenario where your fullbacks aren't as strong, you could, potentially change your system to kind of cover them and make sure that they're doing okay. Um, but yeah, like even like you named a few players there, they obviously have a bit of a problem there in midfield, where they have four really good central midfielders in Kimmich, Kroos, uh, Goretzka, and Gundogan. That's the one you left out. Um,
Yeah,
and they have a bit of a problem up front as well, where they have a few decent players. Like even like obviously Gnabry is very good playing up front for Germany, but even like Werner has a few decent stats, and Havertz as well, and Muller obviously has been brought in for the reason that he is literally the king of knockout tournaments. Like, um, he I just feel like he never scores when I watch
Golden Boot at
Bayern.
2 World Cups.
Yeah, he never scores when I watch Bayern, but as soon as he plays in like a World Cup or Euros, like the fella gets about 8 goals in 4 games. But
Yeah,
yeah, they are kind of dark horses. That's what I'd call them more than anything else, dark horses. They have a solid team
yeah. I
until
don't
you
think
get to
they're
the back line.
favourites. I think one thing that I want to bring up as well is that Latvia, I know it's only against Latvia, but they won 7-1 this evening as we're recording. They played a five at the back formation, which kind of does interest me a bit. And they played Kimmich as a right wing back and Goosens as a left wing back. Robin Goosens, he's been a top class player for Atlanta this season as a left wing back. I honestly, this is one of the ones I had to kind of look about 5 times. As a left wing back, he's very advanced though. He's like Atlanta are such an attacking team, but he's got 11 goals and 6 assists, which is unbelievable. But Atlanta are an unbelievable attacking side. Like over the last few years, they've like outscored City and things, so they're unbelievable. But I think that could be an option for Germany. Like they had Hummels, Rudiger, and Ginter as the back three. Maybe if you're to bring in someone else besides Ginter,
Like Sula
like
or something.
I think someone like I think Emre Can, like I think the manager loves Emre Can at centre back, and like I don't like him at centre back at all. Like he's good passing out the back, but maybe as a right centre half you maybe get away with it, but still I just don't rate him. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting one, but I don't think Germany will get much further than the quarters. I think that'd be a good tournament for them considering the kind of state they're in at the moment. But I wouldn't write them off.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, on to the next team, which is Spain, who are kind of again kind of dark horses. They were obviously unbelievable. From 2008 to 2012, and then
12.
fell off in 14 completely. One of the biggest fall offs ever, really. At that World Cup, but they're a little bit revitalized. Obviously, they have Luis Enrique. That's right, isn't it? Luis
Yeah.
Enrique. Yeah, making sure I didn't name that singer, the Spanish singer.
Enrique Iglesias.
Yeah, they have Luis Enrique who had like an unbelievable stint at Barcelona, um, winning the last Champions League they've won. Picked a really weird squad and quite a lot of decent young players coming through Spain. But yeah, tell us what you think of Spain's chances.
Well, yeah, as you said there, you kind of alluded to. I think Luis Enrique is definitely in terms of caliber of manager, he's definitely up there as one of the best quality managers in this. Like, he's one of the few managers in the tournament you'd think he'd walk into any top job in Europe. Like, if a Chelsea job or whatever came up, like, you feel like he'd be in talks for it.
Yeah,
Um, Obviously he won the Champions League with Barca in 2015 and won a treble. But yeah, this is a crazy kind of thing for Spanish football right now, because it's the first Real Madrid squad in international football history with no Real Madrid players. First Spanish squad ever, and they've only got 3 Barcelona players as well. So it's not even like a Barcelona kind of bias. It's like he's just trying to kind of gut the kind of ex-players he started still hanging on. Obviously, he dropped Ramos, kind of citing injury as the main reason, but I don't really think it's that. Like, I think Ramos played in the Champions League semi-final against Chelsea at the start of May. Like, that's 6 weeks before the start of the tournament. Like, I don't really think that's much of an excuse. Like, you could at least have him in the squad, but I think he definitely did it on purpose. Um, but yeah, like, people don't realize this, but I think, as you said, it's kind of very similar to Germany. It's like they're like a sleeping giant kind of. They're like one of the great teams historically over the last 20, 25 years, but maybe 20 years. But yeah, they just haven't really done much recently, the last few tournaments. But yeah, like, one thing again, which is definitely can't be underrated. Like, their 3 group games are all in Seville in Spain, so they've got home advantage there. They play a lot of their home games there as like just normally. The Spanish team, they've also only lost one of their last 17 games under Luis Enrique. And like, I know they're playing some poor teams in Nations League, whatever, but that's still not to be kind of like, that still is a good record.
yeah,
Um, One thing I kind of didn't understand was that Luis Enrique only took 24 out of 26 players, saying he didn't need 26 players. He said it disrupts the harmony. Like, he kind of just to summarize what he said, he basically said it disrupts the harmony of the squad to have too many players that aren't going to play. Because, like, let's be honest, there's going to be 5 or 6 players at least that don't get a kick for every team. Like,
yeah,
so maybe I understand him there, but yeah, like, the one thing that was given a lot of kind of talk was that they left Iago Aspas out, he's kind of one of the more experienced strikers for Spain. Their only out and out strikers really that they've brought are Gerard Moreno and Alvaro Morata. Morata has been fairly average over the last few years. Like, he's had moments, but I don't really rate him overall, especially as a Chelsea fan the time he was there. But
yeah,
Gerard Moreno of Villarreal. United fans will know him very well after that final. But he's got 23 goals in 33 games this season in the league for Villarreal. So that's a really good record. Like, he could be the kind of player who'd make his name at this tournament. But I suppose he is 29, so it's not like he'll be like a young player coming through. But they do have a good squad, Spain. Laporte, like, deciding to go with Spain rather than France is so big for them. Like, that, I think that really makes me kind of think in my head, Spain have a better chance than I gave them credit for. Because, like, the back four will probably be I think one thing that's interesting is there's a lot of talk coming out of the kind of Spanish camp and the Spanish media that De Gea won't be starting this. Like, I think it probably will be Unai Simon in goals for Spain this summer, which is an interesting one. Like, he hasn't really, like, De Gea just hasn't really done much over the last few years. It's just he's not really rated as highly in Spain as he is here. But yeah, Simon is the Bilbao goalkeeper. He took over when Kepa left. But yeah, Pau Torres will most likely be starting alongside Laporte. You've got a choice between Gaia of Valencia and Alba for Barcelona, who've both had good seasons. Then you've got Azpilicueta at right back, most likely. He's played Lorenda there, but I'd say he'll probably go Azpilicueta. But yeah, what do you think of the Spanish squad? There's a lot of good young players there. And actually, it's just one thing I want to say as well, that Pedri has started 51 games for Barcelona this season, and he's 18, and he's in the squad. I think he'll be a massive player this tournament. And if we were to do like a video on kind of young players who will have a breakout tournament, I think he would definitely be right up on my list, because I think he's such a talent.
yeah. No, he is. He's unbelievable. Just back to the Azpilicueta one we talked about it a little bit earlier again. I actually disagree with you. I actually think he is going to play Llorente at right back. I'm sure you do remember because it was against Chelsea, but Llorente actually played right back against Chelsea.
Yeah,
Um, definitely in the first leg. I can't remember the second leg, but I remember seeing it in the first leg and going, "Jeez, didn't know he could play right back," because just
he's so versatile.
yeah, he's unbelievable, that type of thing. So just on the last game they played, which was against Portugal, so they actually started a fairly strong team against Portugal, although it was only an international friendly. They have one, I think, tomorrow or the next day, against like Lithuania or Latvia or something like that. I don't know, one of those countries. But they had, as you said, like Simon in goal or whatever his name is, Llorente at right back, Laporte, Pau Torres, and Gaia at left back. Which I don't,
Yeah, I
I don't
think it'll
watch.
probably be Gaia.
I don't watch much Spanish football, so I don't really know about him too well. But I was a little bit shocked by that, but maybe I shouldn't be. And then he played Thiago, Busquets, and Fabian Ruiz of Napoli as his three centre
Yeah,
midfielders. Um, Pablo Sarabia on the right, Morata up front, and Ferran Torres on the left. And like, to be honest with you, the only thing I can maybe see changing is that front three, but I don't know how it's going to change. Maybe like a Danny Olmo, who's the Leipzig player, who's another
yeah,
just fella who can play like everywhere. I'm pretty sure stick him in centre back if Laporte gets injured, it'd be grand. Like,
yeah,
um, he might play off the right or something like that, because I can't see Pablo Sarabia, who doesn't play for PSG in big games, um, playing in a major tournament with way better players on the bench. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I think, as you said, they're kind of like a sleeping giant. I think they have a decent chance. Like, they have a pretty nice team from back to front, with decent options off the bench, as you said, like Pedri and stuff like that. Like, if he starts there, maybe instead of Fabian Ruiz as a more attacking outlet with Busquets and Thiago as kind of sitters, maybe, if that's the way they want to play, um, that could be a possibility. Obviously, as an ex-Barca manager, he knows the kind of Barca way, and um, Pedri really suits that Barca way. I think that's why he's played so many games this season. Obviously, he's technically like unbelievable, but he definitely plays that Barca style of play that, they're just known for. It's just a thing, Pretty sure everyone knows what I'm saying when I just say the Barca way of playing football.
mm.
Um, and then they obviously have Ferran Torres, who in their front line, who he hasn't had a bad year. He's extremely young. Pretty sure he's like 2000 born or 99 or 2001 or something like that. He's really young. Um, and I think he's like an unbelievable talent that's just overlooked because he's not English, basically. Um, but kind of worried about the striker. That's the only thing. I don't trust Morata
Yeah,
at all. Like, not
yeah. I
even
feel like,
slightly.
as you, even though I'm talking about Moreno there, I feel like Morata will be the one who plays, just because I think Enrique is not really, as much as like he obviously was playing the Barca way and stuff. He was definitely like, if you looked at other managers like Tito Villanova or other managers like that who came in after Guardiola, I think Enrique definitely had the most direct style of play. Like, he wasn't the kind of manager who'd have 8
Yeah,
or 20 passes or something before they reached the box. It would be kind of, it goes from Piqué into Busquets into Iniesta, and then Iniesta trying to find Messi or Neymar, Suarez or whoever. It was very direct. Like, it's usually 2-3 passes to goal rather than 10 or 15 passes. One thing I didn't like about Spain in previous tournaments, definitely the last World Cup, I just felt like they played 5 centre mids across the midfield.
yeah,
There was no pace, no penetration at all. It was just everything was in front of the defense. I feel like someone, as much as we kind of laugh at it almost, I feel like someone like Adama Traore could be so big for this team, just with the pace he provides. Just something different. I think he's a really good player to bring in the squad. Um, as you used to kind of talk there about Ferran Torres, he's got 6 goals and 10 for Spain, so he's got a good record for Spain, and he kind of got a bit of form there for City in the last few weeks of the league when he was getting a chance. I know the games are kind of dead rubbers, but still, yeah, I feel like Luis Enrique definitely won't do that. Like the last World Cup, obviously that was a disaster anyway, with the manager being sacked right before the World Cup starting. But I feel like they will be a lot more direct, and I give Spain more of a chance this time than last time. I feel like they could be underdogs, but I don't know. I feel a little bit similar to Germany, where I'm just thinking I'm not sure if they have enough quality across the pitch. Like midfield is always undoubted Spain, but in other areas of the pitch, especially mainly up front, to be honest, I just feel like they don't have the kind of goal scoring ability.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And the next team that is up there with the favourites is Belgium. Belgium's a bit of a funny one because like their golden generation is now like in their 30s.
Yeah,
And there's a bit of a shift now between the golden generation and the next kind of the
silver
players coming
generation.
through. Yeah, I mean it's a lot. It's not as good whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
They really like just lost what they had. Um, so like even uh like the players that like in that they've played their two friendly games is what I'm trying to say here, and Hazard didn't start either of them. Well,
Really?
one of the Hazards did, but it wasn't Heaton.
Yeah.
So he was obviously their main player, captain. Was pretty good for them in like all the other international tournaments that I can remember. Off the top
Yeah.
of my head, him playing in. But it's just shifted completely. So obviously Courtois will more than likely play in goal unless Roberto Martinez wants to play Mignolet in goal, which it's going to be Courtois. They
Yeah.
they play a 3-4-3. Well, they did in both of their friendly games. So I'd imagine if you play the same formation across two friendly
Yeah.
games, you're more than likely going to play for the rest of the tournament, or try and play for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
Which is a bit. It's obviously defensive playing three at the back, although it doesn't seem it. They like one of the players that I think might play in this team is either Munier or Castagna, which is like kind of not right mids. They're more right wing backs. Like even Castagna sometimes this year was starting centre back for Leicester when they had
Mm.
their injury troubles. Um, but even like the team that they bring. So like I'm not going to name the goalkeepers other than Courtois, but they have players like Vermaelen.
Yeah.
Now
That's strange.
unless my source is completely wrong here, because I'm questioning it now. Uh,
No, he is. And he plays for
yeah, I don't
Vissel
think I'm wrong.
Kobe in Japan.
Yeah, I kind of knew I wasn't wrong, but I was being a bit sarcastic. But the fact that they're bringing a player like Vermaelen, like he played
Oh
for
my
Arsenal
God.
like 12 years ago,
That is actually shocking.
just shows
He
like
hasn't like that is actually embarrassing. I didn't realize that until now.
yeah, no, they have a really bad squad. Like even their starting centre backs are probably going to be what I think they're going to be. With, anyways, is Alderweireld, um, Vertonghen, and maybe like Denier, probably Denier,
Yeah,
Nair,
probably Denier. Yeah.
with pro.
Castagna will definitely be left wing back, I think. And then Mounier probably right wing back.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
unless they go more attacking on the left side, kind of like
Chadley's played
overload
there
one
before,
side.
but no. I think Castagna, I think they Mounier always plays right wing back, and then Castagna's just had a great season for Leicester. Like I definitely think them two will be the ones. But
Yeah,
it is a strange one, isn't it? Like I think Belgium's time to strike was definitely the 2018 World Cup. Like players like Hazard, De Bruyne were kind of 26, 27, 28.
yeah,
You had Lukaku then as well. It
but
just
Lukaku's
feels
still
like
good.
no, he is still really good. Obviously,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, but just like especially in terms of Hazard, Alderweireld and Vermaelen, sorry, not Vermaelen, Alderweireld and Vertonghen were like at the prime of their game. Then I
yeah,
just feel like that was definitely the time to strike for them. They don't really like a lot of those players are kind of past it now. Hazard has basically not kicked the ball in 2 years. He scored 5 goals in 43 games for Real Madrid over the course of 2 years, which is obviously shocking. Um, but I'm just not sure about Belgium. I think they're going to be way too reliant on De Bruyne and Lukaku. Like the fact
yeah,
that I remember again the last World Cup, especially against Brazil in the quarters. I don't think anyone expected Brazil to lose, but they kind of dropped. They were very deep, Belgium, and then they played those three up front, like Lukaku, De Bruyne, and Hazard. And I just feel like Hazard isn't half the player he was back then. De
Yeah.
Bruyne is probably better. Lukaku is better, but I just don't really see it as being enough unless Torgan Hazard um really really steps up. Like I know players like Tielemans are really good now. He'll definitely start as one of the two midfield positions alongside probably maybe Witzel. And you've got players like Carrasco there. He could play on the left instead of Hazard. He's had a good season for Atletico Madrid, but I just don't really feel that confident in Belgium. Like I feel like their time to strike was definitely 2018, to be honest.
Yeah, like they still have a few tasty players in there, like Lukaku, Dries Mertens, De
Mm.
Bruyne, Torgan Hazard. Not really Eden Hazard, as you said. Tielemans, Carrasco, even like Witzel, still half decent for like international level. Um, but you can't compare them to the teams that we just named. Even Spain, like,
No, no.
and we even had complaints about Spain. Like, this is a team that has like Benteke, Batshuayi, Leandro Trossard. You know, um,
Yeah, yeah.
some
It's always been a good starting 11, but a very poor bench. It's always
yeah,
been really reliant. Like they're the kind of team where one injury. Like imagine actually speaking of that, De Bruyne isn't actually confirmed that he won't be fit for their first game, so they're going to be relying on a half fit De Bruyne to try and win them games.
yeah. I was about to say that. I didn't know if De Bruyne was what the story was with him. But yeah, like it just doesn't look good. I'm just looking even at the teams they played in there too. They didn't win any of their friendlies, I don't think, or maybe they won one of them 1-0. I can't remember. Um,
Yeah,
but the look, I'm not even. If you get Belgium in your family draw, best luck to you. You just lost
pack it in,
you just lost
pack
10
it in.
quid. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think we need to talk about this anymore. To be honest with you, they're not. I don't think
No,
I can't even see them
they'll
getting
probably go on
far.
and win it now. They'll
Like,
probably go on and win it now
who,
because we said this, but I just don't really rate them,
if
and I
you've
don't really think they
downloaded
have a
your
chance.
Real Wall shirt, yeah, like in their, they should get
um,
through their group. It's Denmark, them, Russia, and Finland. Okay.
so you will be expecting them. I think Denmark will top that. That's a quick disclaimer. I think Denmark will top that. I think Belgium will get second though, but I think they'll top the Belgium or Denmark.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Um, but yeah. So the next team that we'll talk about is Italy.
Yeah, so I've covered Italy. Italy's a really interesting one. I'm kind of excited about Italy this time
Me
because
too.
obviously they didn't qualify for the last World Cup, which was just a disaster. Like I felt like Italian football was just in turmoil, and I feel like that was really damaging to like almost like the pride of the Italians, like as the fans, the players, everything. Obviously after that, then Roberto Mancini, former Inter and Man City boss, stepped in, and he has Italy playing in not really a typical Italian way. Like usually when you think of Italy, you just think back three instantly. You think of Buffon, Chiellini, Barzagli, Benucci. Um, well, Barzagli and Buffon aren't there, but you probably will still have Benucci, Chiellini, but you have Donnarumma in behind, who's proven himself over the last few years to be like one of the best keepers in the world. Gone for free this summer, probably to Juventus, and
Looks
maybe
like
to
PSG
Barcelona,
now.
but
I saw a thing
PSG,
for
yeah, like it is. I think
yeah.
every team in the world should be in for him for free. I know that the money that for wages talking about is obscene, but regardless of that, one thing you don't usually associate about Italy is they've got a great attack. They've got great attacking options this time, and they've got a really kind of dynamic midfield, which are things you don't really associate with Italy. Even when they got to the quarters under Conte in 2016 Euros, I just felt like they were so poor and they were relying on typical, just really strong defensive unit. But now midfield, they're probably what they usually play is a 4-3-3. Again, I do think the fullbacks are weak for Italy. You're looking at probably Emerson at left wing back, who's played 2 Premier League games for Chelsea all season. He's had played about 25 minutes all year, but he did score against Atletico Madrid in the 5 seconds he got at the end. But you have Florenzi then a right back who is a bit dodgy from
Yeah.
what I've watched. But the midfield is where I'm really excited about Italy. Obviously, you've got Jorginho, who I know people are very kind of split on. Like it's kind of like a love-hate thing for a lot of
We're
people with
split on them.
Jorginho, but we're splitting him. I don't think he's unbelievable, but I think he's really important for Chelsea and Italy and what he does. He progresses the ball really well. He's so good at beating the press. And one thing about this Italian team is, as I said, different to before. they're really possession dominant. And I think Jorginho is perfect for that because he's just really good at getting on the ball and deep and progressing, like making progressive passes, getting the ball off the centre half and playing it to someone who can do something better with it. Obviously, beside him, then you have Marco Verratti, who people would know about. Really kind of diminutive midfielder off PSG. He's probably in his prime now. He's 28, so you'd be expecting a lot from him. And then a player who I'm honestly one of the most players I'm most excited to watch properly is Nicolo Barella off Inter Milan. Just won the Scudetto with them. When he was at Cagliari, he joined from Cagliari to Inter in 2019 somewhere. Before that he was kind of like a break it up six, and he was really bad for getting bookings and red cards, but he's really developed himself at Inter into a box to box player, and his numbers in terms of attacking, his progressive passes, everything has improved a lot this season, and he's honestly one of the most exciting players in Europe at the moment in terms of centre midfielders. And I feel like this could definitely be a tournament that puts him on the map in terms of like the top clubs looking at him. Then moving on into the front line, you've got a lot of players who've had really good numbers this season. Immobile will definitely be the striker up front in the 4-2-3. He's got 20 goals and 35 this season for Lazio in the league. Then you've got Insigne most likely out on the left, who's got 19 and 30 games for Napoli, and everyone knows is one of the top players in the last few years. And then you've got Chiesa, who's actually been a really good player, probably a bright spark in a poor season for Juventus this season. He's been really good. So I'm, and
Sorry there,
also
Adam. We
then,
lost you there for a second.
oh sorry, what was the last thing I said?
Just you were talking about Chiesa.
Yeah, so Chiesa's been one of the bright sparks for Juventus during the season. He started 30 games in the league this season, so he's been one of the few players that Juventus can kind of look positively at after this year. And then you've got Berardi, who plays for Sassuolo, has got 17 and 30 games in the league this season. So yeah, it's a really good squad. It's definitely a lot better than previous years, and I feel like there's a lot of quality in it and good players to come off the bench too. Like as I said there, Berardi. I think it's just something different to what Italy have offered before, because they're kind of possession dominant side with good attackers, a top striker, and then you've got good midfield, solid defense. Like Bonucci and Chiellini have 106 and 101 caps each. So, and then you have a classy goalkeeper in behind. I think, as I said, it's just the fullbacks again that I'm kind of concerned about. But I'm really excited about Italy, and I think they can go deep in this tournament.
Yeah, I think depending on how Italy play, they can really like actually challenge for this tournament. They have the players there. You know, like a player that you didn't even mention, I'm pretty sure was Locatelli off
Yeah,
Sassuolo. He's a CDM. I'm really excited to watch him play. I think he's 22 or 23. Really nice player. Was linked with Man City a good while ago, about probably Marchish. But really nice player, kind of comfortable on the ball, CDM type player. But yeah, like depending on how they play, like they have a good manager, obviously. Um, but it's one of those teams that they have the players there to like really challenge the big boys on like a day where they have a good manager and they can like really try and get on the front foot and like break a team down. Using the players they have, like even if it is like a France or Germany or Portugal or whatever, like that is a team that can compete. Just like the way kind of Chelsea were this year, Liverpool were a few years ago. One of those teams that like just because of how they play, they could go ahead and really compete. And again, I don't know if you said it there, but they have like a mad record where they haven't lost in like 19 games or something like that.
yeah.
Like it's some crazy record where they're on like a mad, not a win streak, but like a not losing streak in international football. So I'm pretty excited about them as well. Obviously, they have a few young players. They have, mostly players from their own league in Italy, and so we don't really get to watch them. I don't follow the Serie
Yeah.
A that much. I know who wins it, and that's about it. Live score tells me. But I never really watch it unless they're in the Champions League, and obviously Italian teams haven't done great in the Champions League recently. So it is interesting to see how they do, and I pick them as one of the really dark horses. You know, like the way you have dark horses that are also kind of favorites. Like I pick them as an actual dark horse that they could go ahead and do some damage in this tournament.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they're a top side with as a same with Portugal kind of thing, like a good mixture of experience and youth. Like you got players like Immobile who are kind of late 20s, early 30s, and then you got obviously Chiellini, Benucci who are couldn't be more experienced at all. And then obviously Donnarumma, players like that, and Barella. It's just a really interesting kind of blend of players, and I'm really excited with how Mancini sets them up. And again, one thing that can't be underestimated is, I'll say with Spain, they have one of the best managers in the tournament, best pedigree manager. Mancini and Enrique are probably the two best, up there anyway, top few. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. Anyway, I think we should move on to, is it our last
Yeah.
team up?
Yeah, last and most controversial team of probably all time, to be honest with you. I've never experienced something that's happened over the past, like, honestly, it's been like 6-7 months. Like, it's mad how long. Like, people are talking about this England team since November.
Yeah,
Like it's a joke. Honestly, it's a joke. Like, and if they come first in their group, they have to play the people who come second in the group of death. So, like,
Portugal, Germany, or
literally
France.
could be early doors for them. And they've been
Could be.
talking about it since November, but they're still one of the favourites. Definitely one of the strongest 26s. If you're living under a rock, Trent Alexander-Arnold has dropped out of the 26 due to an injury. Personally, I'm absolutely delighted about this as a Liverpool fan. But Ben White has came in and controversially filled his boots in the 26 ahead of players like Ward-Prowse and Jesse Lingard. England, again, kind of a funny one, okay? Extremely overhyped. So let's just get that out of the way first. Some nice players in there, but extremely overhyped because they have an extremely dodgy back five. And this is whether Trent was in it or not. An extremely dodgy back five or back six, whatever way they're going to play, whether it's actually 5 or 2 wing backs and 3 centre backs, or just 4 to back. And obviously, I'm including the goalkeeper in these equations.
Yeah.
So, first of all, with goalkeepers, they have Johnston, Pickford, and Henderson. All dodgy in their own right. Probably Johnston is the least dodgy, but won't play.
We all know it's going to be Pickford as well. We all know it's going to be
So
Pickford.
that's what I was going to say. So Johnston won't play. He's going to be third choice. He's just going to be happy to be there. But even between Henderson and Pickford, like, okay, we've seen less of Henderson. We've seen Pickford make so many mistakes. You know, when he touches the ball onto the crossbar against Liverpool, when he karate kicks players for no reason, loads of different things. No sourness whatsoever.
No.
But yeah, I think they're extremely dodgy, especially the goalkeeper. Like, it's like one thing that, like, Italy definitely has gone from, just to compare. They have a really solid goalkeeper, where England have the dodgiest goalkeeper in the history of football. Like, and for some reason, Southgate loves him. And don't get me wrong, you talked about the Italy and Spain having the 2 best managers in the competition. I actually think England have the best international manager in the competition. So controversial this, but I really do think. I think he's the
Where
best
is this
international.
coming out of?
I think he's honestly the best international manager. I think.
Explain that before you
Well,
move
like,
on. You can't just drop that bombshell and then move on.
right.
That is
Everyone
a
questions.
shocker.
Everyone questions every decision he makes. The reason why everyone questions every decision he makes isn't because he makes bad decisions. It's because he's English. And the way it works in his shows, he has the hardest job in the world. He has the biggest backseat job in the world, you could say, where, like, everyone else thinks they're right and he's wrong. And I think he deals with it pretty well. I think he made a bad decision bringing Ben
You need
White.
to clip that up. He's the best international manager. That is
I think
actually
he's the best international manager. I think the way he handles his press conferences, which is pretty important as an international manager, especially the England international manager, which honestly I think is the hardest job in football. Like the
I think that and the United job are the two hardest jobs in
yeah,
terms of the scrutiny you're under. Like you
yeah,
just get like it's just a different level. Like even like if you get the Chelsea job, the Man City job, even the Liverpool job, like United is just a different level of scrutiny. And it's like that with England. Like you can get the Germany, France, whatever Brazil job, but I think England is just like the media are just so toxic a lot of the time.
yeah. I
I
genuinely
understand you maybe
think
in the PR sense, but in terms of tactically, that is not
no.
true. Like
I really do believe it. I think he uses his strengths extremely well as a manager. Okay, and like I've only gone off the one international competition that he's coached in. Okay, so he
yeah.
could just completely make a show of me here, and all my
I'm
trust is
trying.
gone.
I'm trying to see it, and I just can't. I'm trying to
But
see it.
even in the World Cup, he didn't have a very good squad for the last World Cup. Form wise, English football was just kind of starting to come up. In 2018, like really wasn't great. Like uh, on a European scale. Um, and like he used like set pieces to his advantage, which was genius. Like, can you remember the set pieces that they had?
I think
I
you're
might be looking into
like
this
you're
too much.
being
All right,
so
and
kind. They
no,
had a group of Tunisia, Panama, and like
I know that
some
they
other
still
country,
they still got to the
like
semi final of a
Roscommon
World
or
Cup.
something, and then
They
then they
still got to the semi final of a World Cup, which they couldn't do with like their
uh,
golden era. Okay, I think
but if
I
you would have
really
put
rate
any
him.
team, any England team, where they would have got through that. Like they knocked out Colombia without James. They beat a shocking Sweden team, and then they lost to the first good team they played. They lost to
Look,
Belgium, actually, the first good team they played. Then they lost to Croatia, the second good team, and then they lost to Belgium again. So the
yeah,
teams that they beat were Tunisia, Panama, Sweden, and Colombia on penalties without James Rodriguez, and they
look,
scored 3 goals from open play.
look, look.
That is shocking. Like,
Look, I think he's a good manager. Okay, it's my opinion. Okay, I'm sticking to it. No matter what you say, I think he is a for like I don't
my
think he's
goodness.
okay. He's not a good club manager, and he never will be a good club manager. Hence why when he's finished at England, that's it. His career in management is probably done, and he goes on to being one of those
Yeah,
board
like
members.
he would not get like a Luton City or
No,
Luton
no,
Town. I mean,
no. He's not a
he would
club.
not get a Crystal Palace or Burnley.
He's not a club manager. And I know like 98% of people that are going to listen to this are going to just completely disagree with me, but I think he fits the bill for an international manager extremely
You
well.
mean more on a PR wise, or like
Uh,
actually tactically? Because if you can't be basing your argument on tactics,
yeah, it's probably more on PR, but I think with the
it's a
England
mixture.
job, you actually need it to be like 70% PR, 30% tactical, because they usually have a decent team, other than maybe like 2016. But like no manager has ever been able to like
Mm.
just like turn down the media. Basically the way he does it is just kind of impeccable, and he gets the best out of his players at tournaments, whether he plays rubbish teams on the way to a semi-final of a World Cup. Okay, semi-final semi-final. um
Let's take
yeah,
it out of context.
like he does do weird things, like love Jordan Pickford. I'll never understand that. But
Yeah.
I still rate him. And like Kieran Trippier and stuff like that. I still don't understand that, but we'll digress for a second. So, because we spent way too long just arguing about that.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say in his favor is he probably worked the media the best that any England manager ever has in the run up to that tournament. Like inviting them into the press conferences, like inviting them in, like kind of like I don't know, doing a lot of things. It's like it was almost like an American kind of approach to it, whereas usually I don't know, like he just wasn't under as much scrutiny because he kind of got the media on his side. Like I get you from that point, but
Yeah,
yeah, like I think anyway we should move on to the squad anyway and talk about that.
yeah, yeah. So he picked in his 26-man squad, he picked 35 defenders and only five midfielders. No, he picked. I need to count. Not gonna lie. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Surely I'm getting that wrong. He
What,
picked
nine
so
defenders?
many. Yeah.
I think he
Uh,
did pick nine defenders. You're right. Is that
or
including Big Godfrey? Is it? Well, no, it is. Yeah, yeah, it is.
yeah, he picked so many um,
Yeah.
defenders. So like, that's that. But obviously he has his own plans or something like that. I don't know. But he only picked five midfielders. Um, Henderson, Bellingham, Mount, Rice, Phillips, all very good in their own right. And then his attackers: Kane, Rashford, Sancho, Sterling, Foden, Saka, Grealish, and Calvert-Lewin. Um, so they won both games 1-0 against Austria and Romania. With kind of weird squads. Like he kind of played quite a lot of players that he wasn't going to bring in anyways, like Jesse Lingard.
Yeah,
Um, Ben White at the time wasn't coming.
yeah.
Ben Godfrey. There's loads of different players. Ward Prowse. It was kind of weird. Like he did something that other managers didn't do. Um, but I think it's going to be Pickford and goal. Walker at right back. Then it's going to be Maguire if he's fit. Besides Stones, if Maguire's not fit, all hell breaks loose.
You
And
know what I actually heard today? Actually, I just want to say
okay,
this.
yeah, go for it.
Today is we're recording this on Monday evening, the 7th of June, okay? And as of Sunday, yesterday, the 6th of June, so that's a week out from their first game against Croatia on Sunday the 13th, he only started running and training yesterday. And
Okay,
what I think is, this is just my take on it, the fact that Trent got injured and he didn't bring in Ward Prowse, the fact that he brought in Godfrey makes me, or sorry, not Godfrey,
Ben White.
Ben White, the fact that he brought in Ben White makes me think that Maguire is definitely not going to be fit, because you don't need an extra centre half if Maguire
Yeah,
is fit and he's going to be playing the first game. And to be honest, I don't really understand the whole thing about Ward Prowse anyway. He's not going to be on the pitch. Everyone's saying all set pieces or massive international tournaments. He's not going to be in the pitch. Like, he's not that good enough. He's not good enough to be on the pitch. Like, you
yeah.
definitely say Rice, whatever, you name them all, they're all better than them. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. So I definitely think that Maguire doesn't start for England in at least the first two games. And I think it's the same thing with Jordan Henderson. And I think the fact that England are relying on those two to be fit when Maguire's had a recent injury, but Henderson hasn't played a football since February. I just think that's so worrying for England because they're massive players.
Well, at least Henderson actually played yesterday or 2 days ago. Whenever they played
Yeah,
Romania, yesterday I think he played.
yeah,
He came on, missed the penalty. It was pretty funny to be honest. Um,
yeah.
he took the penalty off DCL and then just missed. But yeah, I think it'll. In anyways, they're perfect back or perfect. Yeah, perfect back four will include Maguire and Stones and Shaw at left back.
Mm.
But I think Shaw and Chilwell kind of will. They have their own game to play out between the two of them. To be honest. Then midfield, I think Rice is like dead on playing like he's the best six that they
Yeah,
have. They'll probably play single
yeah.
pivot. And then this is kind of where it gets a bit fun. Obviously, they've only brought 5 midfielders, so their options in midfield are kind of limited. That's why I think probably just because they only brought 5 midfielders gives me, well, it doesn't give me hope because I don't really care that much, but like it makes me think that Jordan Henderson's gonna be able to play quite a lot of this tournament. But I think that again, their perfect 11. Henderson starts beside Mount. I think he's just better than Bellingham and Phillips. But we'll see what happens. I'd say
Yeah.
Phillips will probably start the first game though, just on a fitness standpoint. And then, I mean, Harry Kane starts up front, and the wingers could be absolutely anyone. Honestly, me and you could start on the wings at this rate. Like no one knows.
I think Foden on the left is guaranteed. I think even though if there's anyone who's going to pick Sterling over Foden after this season, it will be Southgate. But I do think it will be Foden. I just think though, as much as he definitely deserves it, I just don't think Sancho will start. I don't know who will start, but I just feel like he won't start
Rashford.
Sancho because yeah, Rashford's always awful on the right when he plays for United. Like, he's just not the same player.
Mm.
He actually looks out of sorts when he's out on the right. When he's on the left, he's different. And like Foden's played on the left, so you can't really put him on the right. Well, you could, but I don't know. I just think it's such a strange one. I'm not sure. I think my team would definitely be the same as yours, exact same, and then Sancho, Kane, Foden. But
Maybe
you just don't
Grealish.
really know. Yeah, maybe Grealish. Then again, he's been injured too. Like,
Yeah,
it is bad for England, these injuries. I think Maguire definitely won't be fit to start the first game against Croatia. Um, I think Henderson probably won't start, and if he does, they're taking a chance. They're two massive players for England. Like, I think if there's one player you didn't want to get injured, it's probably is Henderson and Maguire. Obviously, but Kane is number one, but them two are massive for England. I'm just not really fully convinced. It isn't as good a team as people are making out to be. I don't think.
yeah, I agree with that.
I don't even know who comes in at centre half. Mings has looked. I just think Mings is a bit ropey. I don't like Mings.
Yeah,
Uh, like he just, I think that the fact that he's left footed just gets him so much more plaudits because like left footed centre halves are more rare nowadays. But
yeah,
I don't know who comes in. Godfrey, or sorry, I keep saying Godfrey White. I mean,
yeah.
mixed between the two of them.
Probably is White. Unless they go three at the back and
Play Walker.
play Walker.
I think if he doesn't have Maguire, he'll definitely play three at the back because it gives him more assurances. Like I
Yeah,
know, I just
gives Mings cover and
I'm
all.
not. I think he'll probably go with Mings, Walker, and then Stones.
Yeah,
Um, that would make more sense to me. But I'm just not. I'm not certain about England. I feel like they're gonna go out in the last 16 England. And I'm not just saying it. Like I don't have any bias against England. Like I love half the players. Like
yeah.
players
I'm
like
the same.
Mount and stuff. I like Rice as well. Like I've nothing against England as a team. I just don't really. I just think they won't beat Portugal, France, or even Germany unless it is Germany somehow.
Yeah,
I wouldn't give England a chance in the last 16 against Portugal or France.
yeah. Me neither. To be honest, it would take a big
These
performance.
injuries too.
Yeah, yeah, and the fact that I just feel like maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I only really watch Premier League and Champions League, so I can't really talk about the other leagues. But I just feel like for some reason there's just more football played in the Premier League. It just seems to be. It probably isn't. I'm probably just talking rubbish. Maybe it's like the intensity level or something like that. But there just always seems to be way
Yeah,
more injuries and stuff like that. Um,
yeah,
in the Premier League, but yeah, I kind of agree. I think on their day they could beat France, they could beat Portugal, and they could beat Germany. But I just don't think that it's going to be their day if they have to play one of them. They're actually better off coming second in the
yeah.
group. Um, but the only thing, just the last thing I'm going to say is the one thing that they do have going for them with injuries is, and especially players coming back fairly soon like Henderson and stuff like that. Their group is Croatia, which is their first game. Then it's Scotland, and then the Czech Republic,
Czech
which
Republic.
yeah,
Yeah,
they should be beating Scotland and the Czech Republic realistically.
yeah. They should. Croatia are definitely not the same team as they were
Yeah,
before either. Like they've dropped off a little bit.
they've lost to bad teams recently.
They have. Yeah, they have not been the same team since they got to that final. But yeah, no, I agree with you with England. I think Maguire probably not playing for all of the tournament. I'd say at this stage, like if I think like I feel like England will do that though. I feel like they'll definitely try and get Maguire and Henderson in the team because they know how important they are, but they're not fit. They're just not
Yeah,
fit. Like, and Gary Neville talked about this before on Monday Night Football, and he said it's so true what he said. He said you can't be relying on players. You can't be relying on a player to come in and make a big difference for you who's 50% fit. Like, and that's
yeah,
exactly what they're going to be doing with Maguire and Henderson. The fact that they're so desperate to take Henderson and Maguire, I understand why because they're great players, but I think that's going to just be such a detriment to them, and it is a bit kind of heartbreaking if you're an England fan that two players like that are just missing. But what do you expect? Maguire doesn't miss. Sorry, Maguire doesn't miss a game for United. He plays every minute, like,
yeah,
and same with Henderson. So I feel like it's just an unlucky one for England. And I honestly don't think. I think if they get, I don't think they get to the quarters.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. They won't get to the quarters, in my opinion, as well. But again, it depends who they face and if they come second in their group, which I can't see them coming second. But look,
Hmm.
it is what it is. I'd still be pretty happy if I got England and the old family, the family Euro Lotto or whatever it's called,
I
where you
think they're
get
the bookies' favourites. I think and I think the fact that one thing for England is though, I think now that the Irish, the games in Ireland got moved, I think England, if there's a certain way the draw works out, that England could play every single game in the whole
in
tournament at Wembley,
Emily.
and with COVID restrictions lifting there in the next few weeks, they're gonna have a lot numbers, a big numbers of fans. I don't know what it is, but it is a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Like it's not going to be like 8 or 10,000. It's going to be like 40,000 or 50,000.
Yeah, it could make a massive difference in this type of tournament with how tight all the margins are going to be with injuries and stuff like that. But yeah, My favourites for the tournament, personally, are going to be Portugal.
Yeah,
Why? I just think they're the best team.
yeah. I'm gonna go with France. Just the fact that they've players like I think players like Kante, the form he's on is absolutely outrageous. They've got
Yeah.
so much depth. They've got the quality up front, and Mbappe and Benzema is just frightening, honestly. And I know Griezmann hasn't been unbelievable for Barca in the last 2 years, but he has been a lot better this season under Coman. And I do think as well that he, I think he always plays well for France. So I'm just gonna go with France. I know it's the obvious bet, and I feel like there's a part of me that always thinks don't go for like the absolute outright favorite, which probably is France. Never genuinely wins it, but I'm just gonna go for France. I think the fact that they've been there before in the Euros and they've kind of not done it, I think it'll spur them on. And I think they might. I think they might beat Portugal in the final.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm sure that can happen, but very
It can,
interesting.
yeah,
It can, yeah.
yeah.
They can meet each other in final. Interesting. All right. Nothing else to say.
No, that was a long one, but yeah, no, we'll be
Yeah, it
back
was.
with more Euros content. If you've listened to this point, fair play means a
Yeah, if
lot.
you've gotten to here, you're a proper OG.
Yeah.
You've
Oh,
listened to
gee.
us for like
Yeah.
an hour and a half.
Yeah, but well, no, we'll definitely have more content as the week goes on. We haven't talked about teams like Holland, Croatia, Denmark, Turkey, other teams like that that are kind of
Yeah.
like
Scotland as
more
well.
like the real, yeah, Scotland too, like the real dark horse. Like I know we talk about Italy and Germany, but they are still kind of historically big nations. But I think we'll definitely do a podcast talking about those kind of teams and what could happen because there could be a few upsets. As I said, I think Denmark could top the group of Belgium, but yeah, thanks for listening to us. If you've made it this far, fair play. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to make it this far.
No,
So
never mind.
thanks very much. All right, bye.
Cheers.